This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome again, everyone. In the previous segment, we looked into the transferable skills and the career path of an IT business analyst role. Now, let's look into the third part of it, which is the pros and cons of the role. After this, again, we'll get back to the actual topic of learning about the uh, different things that you need to be aware of as a business analyst. Okay, so the pros and cons. This is something which may not be usually discussed by most of the other trainers and all, considering that you are already convinced to get into the role. The assumption is that you would be very much aware of what are the advantages, and that is enough. But I feel that you need to be really knowledgeable about what really makes this particular role different, and what are the things which are going to help you a lot in the journey, and what are the things which you need to be a little bit aware of the challenges that you come across, and so that you can prepare yourself for that properly. Okay, so this particular slide is all about that. Let's look at the advantages or the pros of the IT business analyst role first. Okay, so in fact, I would suggest you to pause this video and spend a couple of minutes, and you come up with your own set of points of pros and cons, and then of course you can go through the remaining things that are being mentioned in this section. So you can pause it over here, and then once you're done with your own set of points, then you can come back. Okay. Okay, so I'm assuming that you have done your bit of homework. Now let's get into the details. So firstly, let's look at the advantages. First thing, as we had discussed earlier, transferable skills and career growth is something which you can really be looking forward for when you get into the ITBA role, because a lot of things that you learn in this role are something which can be applied in a lot of other career options, and that will really help you. And career growth again, because the number of options that you have to choose from once you work for a couple of years as an IT business analyst are far too many to select from, and that really gives you the required flexibility in terms of choosing which one really helps you in the long run and going towards that. Okay, that's of course one of the major advantages of getting into this particular role. The second one is the visibility and networking. What do I mean by this is, assume you're in a role of a developer or a tester. Again, I'm taking examples from the IT industry. Maybe in the non-tech also it would be more or less the same. That usually the entry level roles which are there, those would be something which have limited visibility. Like whatever work you do is only known to your reporting manager. That's it. And this person then takes it ahead to the remaining people who are working in that particular project, and so on and so forth. So whatever good amount of work you do, whatever maybe whatever negativity is there in the work and all, that is known only within limited circles of your team, not beyond that. Whereas here, when you talk about a business analyst, your work has a wide range of visibility, because on one side you're creating some documentation, or you're working on some requirements understanding and all, which you're doing with the stakeholders. That is at one end. On the other end, the work that you do is also being regularly getting discussed by your project manager with you, and your developers and the delivery manager and the project sponsor. So everyone would be aware of who the business analyst of a particular project is. They would be knowing you by your name, they would be knowing you by your work, and that gives you a lot of visibility. Whatever work you do, it is going to be uh, like available for everyone to look at and appreciate it when things really are going in a right way. And this gives you a lot of networking opportunity, because again, if you look at the current scenario in any industry, in any job industry and all, the more you network with the people, the more are the chances of having a better career down the line, right? And when I say networking, it's about knowing people, knowing who's who in a particular project, in a particular industry, and being aware of them, and they being aware of you. And the BA role really gives you an amazing opportunity to build this career network for yourself. And that will, and later it depends on you how you can really, make use of this network that you have built for yourself for furthering your career, etc. The third thing is having a proper understanding of the total project. And again, if you're working in a testing or a development or support or something like that, you are confined to a specific section of the total work, and you will rarely have a complete picture of what's in the project, what's not in the project, why, and a lot of other questions you might have about the overall project and all at a limited role of of development or testing. That will not be the problem when you're a business analyst. For example, when you're working as a developer, you might be working on one specific feature and coding for that. You might not be aware of some 10 other features which are part of the project because those are being built or coded by the other developers. Similarly, testing also, you will not be doing end-to-end testing. There'll be again a team of QAs, quality assurance, analysts. So they'll be working on it. So you'll again be confined to one piece of functionality which you'll be testing. And you might be having some questions as to, okay, this particular uh, feature is good, but why wasn't it designed the other way? Why wasn't this other option considered? Now some questions like that might be lingering in your mind, but you might not be having proper answers to it. Whereas as a business analyst, you are the one who is building these requirements. So you will know in and out as to why a specific requirement is there, why wasn't some ABC option considered at all, what was the reason behind it. It could be feasibility, it could be because of money constraint, it could be because of time constraint, but you will know the reason for it, and you'll know why a particular thing is happening the way it is, and that gives you a total control on the work that you're doing. And when you're aware of the entire set of things behind a particular project, your interest in working towards proper execution also will be much better in that work. So that way you have better control on the work that you're doing as a business analyst compared to the other roles that they are out there. Okay. And finally, varied responsibilities and diverse exposure. Why do I say this? Is because every project as a business analyst would be quite different, and in every project the way you work or the sort of expectations from you would be quite different. In some things it could be pretty simple, just working on fewer set of requirements and getting things sorted out can help. Maybe mostly, if you're talking about some sort of projects where you're doing some incremental addition of features to an existing product or a service, this is one sort of an example of projects where the work of a BA is pretty much sorted out. Whereas when you're building something right from scratch, or when you're trying to work on a completely innovative product or a feature, then what happens is your work would be much more. And again, depending on the project, sometimes you might be assuming different hats of a project manager or a testing manager or a SME. So all these things keep on changing. So that in that way, what you learn in this particular role would be very wide ranged set of learnings. And again, diverse exposure, because again, depending on your project, you would be learning a lot of things which could be related to one single domain when you work on multiple projects of that domain, or sometimes you also get to work on different projects of different domains. So as a BA, the core uh, set of skill set that you have, the same thing, like about attention to detail, or brainstorming, or doing analysis, or being adaptable. These things will remain the same, but what you learn about that particular project, about that particular domain, keeps changing from every project, and that way you would have a lot of varied exposure in terms of learning about a particular set of things. So these are the major advantages. Of course, you might have come up with few more advantages which could be there, but if I look at it at a very broad level, these are the ones. Maybe you can add few more things, like for example, if you're looking at on-site opportunities. you know that is something which is a little bit more in the tech industry for business analysts, because there is a requirement of the business analyst to be working with the stakeholders. If it's a waterfall project, then the initial phase of a couple of months is something where a BA would be required to uh, have this face-to-face interaction with the stakeholders. So that could be leading to opportunities wherein you get to work at the client location. So this is one more thing. So like this, there are a lot more things that you can come up, but at a broad level, these are the advantages. Okay, so everything seems good, rosy when we look at the advantages. Let's look at the other side of it as to what are the challenges that you may come across, and because you need to be aware of that section also. Talking about the disadvantages, first thing is it's a huge responsibility. Why do I say so? Is because the success of the project, depends a lot on how the basic requirements have been understood by you as a business analyst. Of course, you still have the support of your stakeholders, project manager, in terms of getting the requirements sorted out, getting it approved, having proper sign off in place, and then getting the development. But as a BA, how much analysis do you do? How much of value add do you create in the project? That can actually create a lot or a much better product delivery at the end. Okay, so in that way, you would be playing a very key role in terms of ensuring that the final product is as user friendly or as efficient or as optimized as possible. So that way, you need to be a little bit more wary of the way you're working and the way your analysis and all is going towards making a better product. You will not have that much of responsibility when you're working in the tech side, because there what happens is something is already assigned to you and you just get to work on it. But whereas as a BA, you get to dictate as to what is the way the work should happen, because the underlying thing for every work would be the requirements. Okay. The second thing is, yeah, this is something which could be a little annoying initially when you get into the role of a BA, that there will be a lot of ambiguity in requirements. Again, when you work in a particular role of a testing or a quality assurance or support or development or design and all, what happens is you are clearly assigned a specific task, and you're told that this is what you need to be working upon. And maybe, in a given week's time, or a sprint is usually of 2 weeks, usually. So at the beginning of the sprint, you're told that this is the set of things that you're supposed to work on in this particular 2 weeks of time, and you're aware of what is being expected from you. And if you're really good enough and you can complete that work within a couple of days of time, maybe 3 or 4 days, the remaining days of the sprint, you can be actually assured that okay, not much of work is required to be done by me in that particular period of time. But that sort of clarity would be missing for a business analyst, because when you focus on requirements, you can never be sure that yes, I am completely 100% uh, uh, put down everything that is required in this project, because every time there is some sort of enhancement, some sort of tweaking here and there, some sort of changes that are supposed to be done in the way the things have been documented, or some new requirements may be coming, some change requests may be coming, or something which has been discussed earlier requires a little bit more of analysis. A lot of these things keep happening. So the requirements that you're really focusing upon for the project, there can be a lot of ambiguity in it. And sometimes it also leads to a situation wherein your stakeholders themselves are not clear with what are the finer details that you are expecting from them. Or sometimes there could be conflict in the requirements that are being shared by a couple of stakeholders. So all of these things require you to really work around and get things sorted out. So you cannot really expect 100% clarity in what is supposed to be delivered. And frankly speaking, this is not something which is specific to that of a business analyst. But whenever you move from your entry level to a mid senior level to a senior level, or a leadership related sort of roles, the ambiguity at your work keeps on increasing. And if you look at it properly, the one who's at the top, like someone at a CEO level, That person will be handling with a lot of ambiguity on a daily basis, because how to get things sorted out, what needs to be focused upon, where to work about, and which particular team requires more focus. That and all, it all depends on a lot of factors out there. And it's not only your work, but sometimes external uh, factors also play a big role in how your work is getting affected. So that sort of ambiguity and requirements will be there a lot in all of these roles as you move towards advancing your career into some mid level or senior level and all. So that is something which you will be observing in the business analyst role also. The third thing, with this we have covered earlier, scope creep. So this is again a thing which it's best if it's avoided, but you would still see it happening, because again, as I said earlier, you can never be sure that you have completely 100% looked at all the requirements that can be part of a particular project. And sometimes some things which have got assumed to be of a smaller scope tend to be much bigger than expected, and you need to be on at a good level of interaction with your tech team as well as with your project managers to be more aware of how these things can happen and how you can work around any scope creep that comes up in your project. The fourth thing is the stakeholder management. Again, what happens here is whenever you talk about conducting sessions, workshops, and discussing the requirements, the multiple solutions available, and all the points, you are interacting with a set of human beings. When I say stakeholders, you're interacting with some five or seven or some three or any set of individuals who form the stakeholder group. And when you talk about individuals, everyone has their own personality traits. It might be sometimes difficult to get the uh, requirements detailed out, and it's not always that they are the problem is at the stakeholders end. Sometimes it could be a genuine problem, like uh, lack of availability of the time of stakeholders to get the requirements understood properly. So we have a separate slide again wherein we talk about what are the major issues that you can face with stakeholders and how you can deal with it later. But to just give you an idea, stakeholder management is something which is a skill that you'll develop as a business analyst. Okay. And finally, limited control and execution. Why do I say this? Is because here, as a BA, you would not be in a position of authority as such. You are not a manager. Okay, so you're not leading any group of individuals, but at the same time you need to get the things happening, you need to get the things rolling out. So when you have to interact with stakeholders, you don't completely you cannot you're not in a position wherein you can dominate the stakeholders, right? You need to work around getting the things without spoiling the relationship. At the same time, you cannot boss over your technical team, but you need to ensure that they are doing the right set of development and testing activities. You cannot really be actually again leading the users who are doing the user acceptance testing, but at the same time you need to ensure that they are uh, completing their set of work in the due course of time. So in this way, what happens is you would be one who would be working with the different segments of people, but at the same time you will not be having any sort of control on how they are executing the task. Yet you are supposed to work along with them and ensure that everything is happening in as per the plan. Okay. So that is something which is again could be a sort of a disadvantage, because you don't see these things and all in the other roles in the tech industry, but here it becomes more uh, clear about these points that you need to face. So these are the things which I wanted to highlight in terms of letting you know what could be the probable disadvantages. And again, for example, if there's a person who is not a team player, who likes to work in isolation. Nothing wrong. That is also a way of working for some individuals. Then I would say that that can turn out to be a huge disadvantage. If you are a person who thinks that I don't want to really work with a set of people, I'm better off working as an individual. There are certain roles. Also, for example, if you talk about people who work in this investment banking, etc., things like that, they might not have to really interact with a lot of people. Even if you talk about the developers or in the tech industry, they don't have to really interact with a lot of people. They are assigned a specific set of tasks, and they're told that okay, this is the thing that you need to code upon, and that is what they need to do. Their interaction is more with the machine when they're doing the coding work, right? So their things can be really good for some people, and when you ask them to get into a role wherein they have to always mingle and discuss and get the things sorted out with a lot of different people and work around with different mindsets, that might be a very big challenge. So be aware that as a BA, you should be a person who is sociable, who likes to communicate, who likes to, build this network. And that's when, if you are of that sort of mindset, then this work can be really very fruitful for you, the work of a IT BA. Okay, so again, this is a list which I had in my mind in terms of the disadvantages. You might have few more pointers that can come to your mind. So I would urge you that if you have any such points which you thought of, uh, or you want to discuss more about what could be the good things and bad things of the BA role and all, make a note of it. When we have a one-to-one discussion, we can get into the further details of it. Okay, so this is what it's all about. In the next slide or in the next segment, we will discuss on the requirements, the different types of requirements that you would be working on as a business analyst. Okay, so we'll close this session here. Thanks everyone.